having that one person in your life, no matter how much you're in that person's life, can really make a difference, whether it's a teacher or a coach or an adult or just somebody to listen to. And we found that it's just an invaluable experience for those that decide to be a mentor. But again, like I said earlier, every volunteer, no matter what part they play within the village, it does truly take a village to raise a child. That's what we're all about.
Welcome to episode 9 of the New Hanover County Action Team, Samara's Village. Samara's Village is a 501c3 charitable nonprofit organization located in Southport, North Carolina. Samara's Village helps Brunswick County pregnant and parenting adolescents and their families raise healthy babies. Their vision is building a strong community, one child at a time. Their mission is to educate, equip, and empower pregnant and parenting adolescents and their families to raise healthy babies. Today, our guest is Executive Director of Samara's Village, Debbie Keener. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Wonderful having you. Now, I learned on your website that Samara means under God's protection. And I'd love it if you could just tell us a little bit how that name was chosen and how the organization came to be.
There were two young mothers who would walk in the morning, and they had small children, so they would, just get together and talk. And they had attended church together, and their pastor had asked them about looking for a need in the community. And they happened to notice quite a few young expecting mothers when they were taking those walks together. And that's actually the very origin of it. And they approached their pastor and found out the statistics. We being Brunswick County, third in the state for high teenage pregnancy at the time.
So out of 100 counties, you were third.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes, that was a wow. And they got together with another lady in their church who had her master's in nonprofit. And she was basically the glue that held us together over time. She was the treasurer. She was a founder. She just really helped form our nonprofit. And then there was a fourth woman that they contacted, also a young mother who had her nursing background. She had been a nurse at the time and worked around in the county. So she helped teach some childbirth classes, nurse breastfeeding classes, nursing, and also just, shared her wisdom with the mothers. So it was great. So the four of them together all founded Samara's Village. And that's where the name came from. I wasn't involved at the time, so I don't specifically, and then it takes a village to raise a child. Obviously, that was the other part of it.
That was the other part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I think, the solution expresses the problem, right? If bringing people together to create a community for these young mothers and the fathers to the extent that they're involved, and I gather that often they are, and that's part of what you do is encouraging the young fathers to take responsibility, and we'll get into that. The source is something missing in the community, I would think.
Yes, and we learned that you cannot have, or you shouldn't have, duplication of services with nonprofits, but we work very closely with many others and collaborate because we provide education, and that's our focus. We do have the resources, the equipment, but if there's a need for daycare or housing or counseling, we don't provide that. We just we focus on the education piece. We want to train them how to be good parents And that's through our mentorship program. And that's from whenever the mother enters the program, she could be pregnant or have had a child until the baby turns 3. So it's an intensive commitment from a volunteer, whether it's mentoring that mother or mentoring that father, but everything's a one-on-one mentorship of using our curriculum to teach that education to the parent.
Okay. So let's just get into the details on this. I mean, if anyone is in a rush, go check out the website, because the website is an amazing set of resources. And as you say, you connect to many other resources as well, but you'll get a good idea of what is offered by Samara's Village. But according to your website, you have 3 prongs, right? You have the specialized educational interventions, services directed at supporting the family's immediate needs, and coordination with available resources. So if you could just go into detail about what each of those looks like.
Certainly. For the mothers, we have a curriculum that we use through Florida State University. It's called Partners for a Healthy Baby. And there is a 4-book series, and they go through each of those steps I was referring to earlier, when the mother's pregnant, and then age 1, the first year of the baby's life, age 2, the second year, and then the third year of the child's life. Then at the end of that, we try to segue the parents to get their child involved in Smart Start, which is a local nonprofit.
Now, is that similar to Head Start?
I guess that it is. I'm not 100% familiar with Head Start, but it's
Well, tell me about Smart Start, because now that you say it, I'm not 100% familiar with Head Start. So why don't we talk about the service that you offer?
Better explain what I know.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about Smart Start.
They have a program called Kaleidoscope Play and Learn, and it's young parents in our county. We offer a location at our resource center where they can come every Thursday morning from 10 to 11:30. And there is a staff from Smart Start who is there and helps them with parenting skills as well. Just watching the interaction between the children. And the children have a chance for socialization, which many of our parents don't have that opportunity. And the mothers also get that chance as well. But it's not limited to mothers. It's actually for anybody with a child age 5 and under. So they would, be a guardian or a caregiver or a grandparent. And we have a little bit of all of that attends, and it's all free. And they rearrange everything at our resource center, and they have all kinds of activities. It's always a variety. I can hear them having a great time. I'm usually in my office working, but I can hear the giggles and the fun.
So it sort of recreates a preschool or a situation. There's play and activities and sort of a nascent educational aspect. It would be like sending your kid to a preschool of some sort.
Yes, but the parents also get that education of interaction with their child and verbal clues and just ways to interact and engage with your child, which is important, especially all the screen time that many young people seem to have, that they are just like totally focused on their child that morning.
Yeah. Really, so I'm so glad you brought that up. Talk a little, because I observe this among much older adults. You think about someone who's an adolescent who's suddenly shouldered with this daunting responsibility, and sort of, I was just figuring out my life and I was overwhelmed already just being a teenager, and now I'm responsible for another life. And that's always been a very fraught and burdensome situation. But now you add this social media thing. I know, having observed in local politics, the way social media interaction and having more of a relationship with your phone and with people through your phone than face to face, how corrosive that is to face relationships. And I will see people who will have very intense interactions online, and these are people who are, in their 50s and 60s, then can't go into a room and make eye contact. So tell me about, how you've managed to address bringing people away from that obsession, because I feel like we have so much stimulus coming from our devices that it really undermines personal interactions. What's worked for you? What's not working? What have your struggles been, etc.?
Well, I'll start with what did work for us. We had a mentor who was, during the pandemic, able to develop a relationship with a young mother using FaceTiming and Zooming and text messaging until they could actually meet face to face. And that was really pretty remarkable, because that's a tough thing, I would think, to do with anybody, really. But
Yeah.
it worked. I would say, as I don't necessarily a challenge, but I would say as an example, the mentors are meeting face to face with the mothers. So during that hour, they're not on their phones, text messaging or talking to somebody else. Their total focus is on that young man or that mother, and helping them set goals and helping them understand how important it is to be a parent, how to be a parent, and how to engage with their child. So the importance of a mentor is to be a role model, and that's so during that time, I'm sure it's addressed, but they're really working to be a good example.
Yeah, and I imagine the need these young women have, or these young parents have, as I said, if the father is involved, is a motivation to engage on that level, and probably the gratitude too that someone is taking the time to help them. And just one other thing I wanted to point out, the FSU program for parenting. Now that's something, a training that you provide, a course that you provide to these mothers free. How much would that normally cost a parent if they were to buy that set of books and have that training made available to them?
Well, the purchase price for one of the books is $125. So that would be around $500 just for the books themselves.
Wow.
We had originally gone and learned about the curriculum when we first began as a nonprofit, and I was one of those motherhood mentors back then. And then in 2020, there was a group of us that went back and learned how to train with that curriculum. And now the mentors, and that's important. And we're talking about sending another group again this fall, because we want to continue the training. And it's, you think that having a baby is exactly the same, but things change. Research is done. We have babies sleeping on their backs, babies sleeping on their stomachs. We learn about safe sleep, babies not sleeping with parents, and education just continues, and we want to share everything we can to keep those babies as safe as possible.
Yeah,
And
well, it's just like a doctor, right? If you know
yeah,
anyone who's a doctor, they have to recertify every 7 years or so. So it's good to know you guys are staying current with the most recent research and all that. That's excellent. So that's the Head Start. And do you want? Yeah, let's dig in a little bit more to the. Was there more you wanted to say about the mother mentoring, or did you want to?
I'd like to touch on the father mentoring a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Curriculum, and we use the Fatherhood Initiative. It's a site where you can purchase materials, and they talk about 10 ways to be a better dad, and how to be engaged as a father, and relationships, how to get along with the mother, and ways to keep your home safe. And those kind of topics pertain more to the dad, not necessarily, they don't pertain to the mother, but we found it's very difficult to get the fathers involved. It's a challenge for us. I just met a mother this morning. She stopped by our resource center to get some items for her little one. He's a year old, and she's expecting again, and her baby dad's in jail right now, so and we have some of that, some really struggling situations. Or The pregnancy happens, and then the baby dad decides he wants to go not be involved, with the mother or the child, and off he goes in a new relationship. Sometimes there's a boyfriend that decides he wants to be, the role model of the father, and he's willing to be in our program. It's as varied as our faces are varied. All the situations I could, they never cease to surprise me, and they are just very, very different. But we try our best to get the fathers engaged. When we meet the mother, we'll ask, do you think the dad would be interested in being in our program? And we have a mentor there just to meet the mother and introduce himself and try to start that relationship. But that is the key. Before we even begin the education, it's all about just developing trust, setting some goals, and being supportive to those young parents.
So, I think in one way we're looking at this is we're assuming that the audience is people learning about your organization and maybe wanting to volunteer and maybe wanting to donate, maybe wanting to buy some stuff at Village Treasures. We'll get into that later. I think that's a great thing. My wife and I are just about to get a house, and I was saying, honey, I know where we can furnish our house from. Because, when you're getting a house, you feel like, oh, all the money. So it's nice to feel like, oh, wait a minute, I can make some of this money make a difference. If you haven't, I'll put all the stuff in the description, but just looking at the items that are in Village Treasures, I mean, it's really high quality stuff. It's beautiful, beautiful furniture and things for the home there. And I highly recommend people go there and buy that stuff. But I also want to look at this from, if there were a young mother or maybe a young father watching this, you're talking about the first thing is to make that relationship. So maybe just walk us through an example of how it is for, a hypothetical young woman who decides to call you guys up. Go through it in a sequential way.
Well, it's kind of hard not knowing where she might be in her pregnancy or whether she's currently parenting or not. But let's say she has a 1-year-old little girl, and she decides she needs support, because we ask that mother or that father for that commitment to make sure that they are interested. We've had some mothers who have to be in our program because the Department of Social Services requires them to be in it, or sometimes legally they're required to be in it. And that's not quite as easy to develop a relationship when you're there under demand, basically. But, they may go out for coffee, they may go out for lunch, they may go to the park, depending on the age of the child. But if, you have a little one that's one, they certainly can go to a playground, swing in a little toddler swing, and just spend time together talking. Just knowing there's somebody you can call and say, my baby didn't sleep last night. Do you have any ideas? A lot of times these young parents don't have like a mother or a father. Some of the mothers sometimes are the parents not available for whatever reason. And just having that woman to call, is just
Can I dig into that just a little bit?
Sure.
What is the overlap? And I'm not asking for specific percentages unless you have the stats. What is the overlap of disengagement of the parents of the young parents and women who come into your program?
It varies depending on the situation. It really does. I don't have any statistics in front of me to let you know that. Most of the grandparents are very supportive.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, they really are, which is surprising.
Well, that's great.
But of those we've met, I would say the majority of them have. Sometimes they come to the intake with the parents, they'll bring them. Sometimes we're surprised that the young mother even wants to be in the program because she has support. But it's easier sometimes to talk about things to somebody that isn't so close to you.
Right.
Or even the grandmothers get supported too. We've had relationships where the mentor, the grandmother, and the young mother all formed a bond. It really has been a wonderful experience. We really haven't had pushback. And sometimes our mentors will say, well, does the grandmother find us intrusive, you know, like they already have that woman in their life. But we try to be very, very supportive, very uplifting, and just encourage everybody and talk about, you know, what's going on and try and make it good for everyone.
Now, do you find that at the Smart Start meetups, I don't, did you, the Smart Start events, the weekly service there, do you find that there's a community developing amongst the young mothers?
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can see them coming back, and you can see that relationship building within just the comfort. You can tell, you can observe it easily when you walk in the room. But there's always some new ones, but they're very welcoming, which is great.
Yeah.
And
And
this,
I imagine that extends then to the children. I mean, so you're talking about relationships that, you know, will go on for decades, probably in some cases.
I would think so. Yes.
And you're strengthening, and it's all local. That's what I think so lovely about this, that it's so focused just on your county, which
Mhm.
is not a small area, but it's, you know, I think one of the things everyone struggles with nowadays is feeling like we're living next to people, but not with them. You know, that we're not involved with our neighbors, that they're just people who sleep next door to us, kind of thing. I think that part of it, where you're connecting people who are just a short drive away from one another, you know, even if they don't drive over, they're calling and they say, hey, if you need me to come over, I'll be there. Finding people that whose kids your kids can play with, and you know you're sort of connected to the same set of values, at least in the sense of wanting to do the best you can to raise your child well. I think that's extraordinary, and I think that's the kind of thing that's going to bear fruit outside of the direct things you're doing. And I just think it's such an amazing thing you guys are doing. I noticed in the father mentorship, so you're saying it's been difficult to get the fathers to stick to the program. But I did notice that there are group meetings for the fathers as well.
I was going to say, we try to do that if we can
Okay.
get together. We haven't had much success with that. I'm just being totally honest, but
Sure.
continue to have that as one of our goals. Or family get-togethers. We're working on that too. So maybe the fathers will get to meet each other, you know, through coming as a family versus coming as one-on-one. There a lot of times we just hear they're so busy with work, you know, that they don't have the time to meet with a mentor as well. But once we get, right now we have 7 fathers involved. I'd like to just interview them at some point and find out how they find the time, what keeps them involved, you know, because is it the mentor? Is it the relationship? Is it the dedication to the mother, the child? Something brings them back. And I'd like to find out what that is so we can find it for others.
Right. So for those of you who are interested in what you've heard so far and want to find out more, whether you're a young woman or a young family who are in need of support, if you're pregnant or if you're parenting, or if you're a volunteer or a donor who wants to get involved, certainly this is an extraordinary service that is offered. Samara's Village, is it Samara or Samara?
Yes.
That's right, as long as you spell it correctly. You can go to samarasvillage.org, samarasvillage.org. The number is 910-294-0292, and you can email contact@samarasvillage.org. And it's located at 1450 F 50 Lakes Drive, Southport, North Carolina. And if you want to spread the word and get connected to their social media posts, you can follow the hashtags Samara's Village and Be the Village. And Village Treasures. We have to talk about Village Treasures. We won't forget about that. Village Treasures is a consignment store. Is that correct?
It is. Well, not a thrift shop, not really consignment. All of the items that we have within Village Treasures are donated to us, and then we sell them, and that money gets put back into our programs. So we're not really a consigner. We have home decor and gently used furniture. And our store manager, who's also one of our board members, have run a store in Greensboro. So she's very familiar with furniture and quality, and she will yes or no it, depending on how well worn it is. But furniture, to buy it brand new,
It's so expensive.
it's so expensive, and it loses its value so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great place to come. We've had
It's
wonderful compliments about our.
It's beautiful, and let's be honest, it fits Southport. How many people go down to Southport to do a little dining and a little sightseeing and what the heck, a little bit of shopping? And if you go on the samarasvillage.org website, you'll see the items are very beautiful and tasteful. You have the people who donate to you have great taste. I can say that much. And it's located on 1513 North Howe Street, just behind Walgreens. It's open 11 to 4 daily. And their number is 910-477-6241. And you can reach them at treasures@samarasvillage.org. And so there's 3 ways to get involved there, right? You can donate, you can volunteer there, and you can shop there. And you can do all 3. You're not limited to any one. Now, you guys have been super busy lately. You said you had 57 families come to your spring pop-up. What was that all about?
We do. Well, I told you our focus is on education, and we really want to get our mothers involved with other nonprofits in the area because there's so much that's here to offer in our county. So we had 8 of our partners that we collaborate with who set up tents outside of our resource center. And the families that came that day could walk around to each of the tents and learn what is available. It was, I'm not going to name them all because I don't want to leave anybody out, but WIC was there for one example. The Department of Health was there. Just there's so much that's offered that people just don't have a clue.
They don't know about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that, just educate the parents. And then once they had gone through and visited each of the partners, then they could come inside to our resource center. And there we have anything you need to raise a baby from newborn to age 3. And we had a shopping list that they could have a certain quantity of different items, but everything was free. It's just to help the families in the county. And that's why donations are given to us, so they could get a high chair or a crib or a stroller or clothing, just nursing equipment, anything that they really needed to raise that baby. We had it. And it was great.
On your website, for people who are interested in providing these things, you actually have lists of the things you need. I think car seats are the highest in demand item, and the condition that these things have to be in. So if people are wanting to donate, that all the information is on the website. And there's also on your Facebook page, I see you guys post regularly. You guys are very conscientious about posting. You can find out when there are these events where you have the opportunity to donate, or if you need to pick up some of these items, go pick them up. And to me, it seems like probably for someone who's, for whatever reason, hesitant to get involved, that seems to me the lowest cost way of putting your toe in the water is to say, man, I don't know if I'm up for this, but geez, I need a car seat. Let me go out there. And at that point, they can meet the other young women who are there. They can meet some of the mother mentors. They can be aware of some of the resources where they're overwhelmed and they go, I don't know how I'm going to, pay my food bill. Is there any way I can get help? They can get connected to the WIC people, or I have this health issue that I haven't been able to check on. They can get connected to the health department, find out about free testing and all this stuff. So you had a spring pop-up. You have a summer pop-up coming?
We do, June 21st, and that's going to be at Seaside United Methodist Church. One of the things we're trying to do is expand within the county. You mentioned how big it is mileage-wise, and we actually talked about having mentors get together with other mentors in different parts of the county with their moms or dads or families so that they can get to know each other and just kind of expand that social relationship, which is so important too. But we're trying our first one at Seaside United Methodist Church. It's June 21st. It's a Wednesday, 4 till 6. We had one in Charlotte in January. We had 120 families there. So we know the need is definitely there. And these are not just 21 and under mothers. This is for any mother in the county, grandparent, anybody with a child age 3 and under. That's what the pop-ups are for. We just get, a large inventory that we're very blessed with, and we want to share it.
Well, it's so extraordinary, I'm not, this is not to diminish what you're doing, but just, it's to say it's a great match in that area of people who have retired and have some extra money, and then people who have some needs who are younger, and that's how life works. You accumulate wealth over time, and it's harder when you're younger, and then you have time to give back when you're older. But that it's a bit of a retirement community. I just feel like you're taking these two things that fit together and bringing them together so wonderfully. And I'm so glad you guys are doing it. So the pop-ups are a great place for volunteers, I guess, to put their toe in the water too and come and find out all about it, get involved in that community.
They are. It's a great way to feel that impact as an individual because you're walking alongside of a family. I had a chance to do it and I love it. You just get to, find out a little bit about them, share about Samara's Village, find out if they're qualified. It's just nice to know you're helping somebody. There's just nothing like that feeling,
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things people should do after they watch this is, go to the website and read some of the success stories, and you'll just get chills thinking about, there was the one story of the young woman who wanted to get an architectural degree, and she had gotten a scholarship to the Brunswick Community College, but they didn't have that program. And so something was worked out with Cape Fear Community College. And now she's enrolled, and I think she has a 3.8 average. And, and I think, I didn't have a 3.8 average, and I didn't even have a kid, so, that's the other thing is, well, it's just very inspiring, so the more people find out, I think the more they're going to want to get involved. As long as we're on this subject, I saw that, what was it? Oh, Brunswick Beer and Cider was your partner. It was your 11% partner in April. Tell me about how that works and how other businesses who hear about this and say, hey, this sounds like something we want to help out with, how that relationship gets put together.
They had I think it was an email. My husband sent it to me about an application you could fill out as a nonprofit. And they asked for a little bit of history about the nonprofit. And then you could request a certain time of year where you felt you could be supported. So I chose the spring because it's a beautiful setting on a pond with a fountain, and I knew people could be outside. And they donate a specific beer, 11% back. So people that purchased in this month, it was Dippin' Hops. If you bought a cup of that beer, whatever size, then they gave 11% back to our nonprofit.
Oh, wow.
So it was really sweet of them. And the other thing that they did was they had a Mother's Day market this past Sunday or Saturday.
Yes.
And a certain percentage, I'm not sure what, that's going to be back to us as well. Eggs Up Grill down in Southport and also Charlotte gave us a certain proceeds from a day when they had people there. They just came out and had breakfast or lunch, and then they shared a certain percentage of their profit that day. But businesses have been very supportive. Chili's down in Charlotte, we had a dine around, and people had been supportive of us it was Wings and Fish down in Charlotte. It's wonderful. It's a very supportive community in so many ways. not just the volunteers, but the businesses as well.
And it seems like there, one of the great things about it being local is that there aren't a lot of layers to get through. So pretty much it seems like any business that would want to give part of their profits or sponsor you in some way, just pretty much have to call the main number and they'll get connected to the right person. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is,
Oh,
really.
oh,
Yeah.
there you go. There you go. So no excuses left, local businesses. Call up. Services directly supporting the family's needs. That would be mostly the donations and the items. And the items are available at your offices any day your offices are open. People can come by.
Well, if they're involved in our program, those items are available to those parents. All the mentors have keys to our resource center. So
Okay.
a lot of people meet there. Today there was somebody there. Last Thursday there was somebody there. They just bring the parents there and then they can basically shop for what they need. But if they're not involved in our program, then they would attend the pop-up shops. And then we're
Okay.
more exclusive about what they can take because we need to keep things available to our parents. They're always first.
That's right. So you're first on the list for the stuff that's at the home office, but then the pop-up shop is sort of more open to the general public.
Correct.
Okay. With the coordination of services, I know you didn't have the full list, but I guess the question I'd ask for anyone who's watching, who's in need of some of this stuff, what would you say would be the top services that are available to young parents who are in need that they're just not aware of? What are the things that people just miss? They're worried that they can't meet this need, but it's out there.
Well, I wish I could say housing was something that has an answer, but unfortunately, affordable housing in Brunswick County is very difficult to find. And we had a nonprofit meeting last Wednesday morning of the nonprofits in Brunswick County, and transportation and housing were top on our list.
Top needs.
Quarterly to see if we can do have some discussion and come up with some solutions, invite the commissioners to come listen and hear the need and see if we can, pool our resources and make a difference. But it's going to take some brainstorming and some thoughts.
Yeah, there would have to be some sort of, I wonder if you could, tell me about this international student you had come in and help you with the online tech.
Oh, yes, he was an intern. He helped at Village Treasures, and he entered the data into the computer system. I didn't get to meet him personally, but the woman that he was staying with had been a mentor with a mother, in the past. So that's how he got involved. He was there for 2 weeks, I believe it was, at Village Treasures. But everybody for him.
Yes. No, well, he seemed like a great kid. It was a great story about him. But I wonder, it'd be interesting if you had a tech person who could figure out how to mimic an app that would be like a sort of a local Uber. You know what I'm saying? It could be a volunteer, car service app. I wonder if there's any people who know how to build an app. Call Debbie Keener. Transportation, or if you're in that business, because I imagine people use Uber and Lyft down there a lot. I wonder if that could be a write-off for anyone who wanted to spend part of his day volunteering.
If it is a possibility. I know we've talked about it. We always think about safety, for the parents.
Yeah.
They've been screened, or they have a background check or whatever. We just always.
Yeah, no, that's true. You'd have to vet it pretty carefully. So as long as we're on that, what are the requirements to be a mother mentor and a father mentor?
Just what we're talking about. They have a background check they must pass, and they have an orientation program they need to go through, and then they have training that they have to go through.
And how long does the training take?
It's about a day for the training as a mentor. as the initial training. It goes, they have monthly meetings, so we're never finished learning. I was a teacher
Sure.
background, and we constantly learn things. And one of the things we are mandatory reporters, is in one of our coming up meetings is teaching our mentors what to look for, what they need to report, when they need to report it. Just because things happen, and it's better to be safe and get it out there than to wish you would have said something. So that's one.
Yeah. So you have what's the word I'm looking for? You have high accountability.
We do.
That's good. That's good to know. So, and I imagine too that if you're a volunteer, you self-pace as well, right? So you can get the day of training, but then you may want some more interaction. You may want some more shadowing. It's going to be down to people's comfort, I suppose.
Yes. Sometimes the mentors, well, often will ask one of the leaders to go out with them on that first visit or a second visit till they're comfortable. We use a software system to record our information that we learned on each of those visits with a parent. So everything's documented. Sometimes the courts will ask for those reports, so we want to be sure that we're keeping them updated. They're done at least monthly. We do a self-assessment of our parents once, biannually, about every 6 months, to look for the progress and the goals that they're setting. We're trying to measure that impact constantly, and also our programs, our effectiveness.
That's great. And how are you? So, what are the measurements of effectiveness?
It's a scale of 1 to 5, and the domains or the categories are housing, employment, income, food, childcare, the child's education, and sometimes that's not applicable, but are they enrolled in some kind of a preschool, or it's more of a school-aged situation? Is the parent the adult education? You know, have they gotten their GED or graduated high school? We really work strongly with Brunswick Literacy Council to push the GED program to get them a step ahead of where they would be if they don't finish high school, which is very common with teen mothers. Certain life skills, family, social relations, their transportation, you know, are they stuck at home? Do they have transportation? Community involvement, parenting skills. Is there any legal situations like outstanding warrants? We do have a lot of that. Mental health, which is very common too. A lot of depression, anxiety. Those are probably the most common ones for both the mothers and the fathers. Substance is another category. Safety, and then some disabilities. Some of our parents have disabilities, not many, but some do. And mental health, there's a lot of bipolar that we deal with as well, which is challenging, you know, because our volunteers aren't necessarily schooled in some of this. So the importance of having mental health training is valuable because it teaches them how to work with disabilities also.
Well, and I think that highlights the importance of your connection to other resources in the community, to where, you know, you want to connect people to the experts that can provide that service if it goes beyond the knowledge or the ability of the specific mother or father mentor. And I'm really glad you read that list. And anyone who's watching this, go back and listen to that whole list, because, you know, it gives an idea of how comprehensive the guidance you give is. You're really setting these young people up in every area of their life. These are all the areas of concern. So it's not just how do I raise my baby, but how do I put together a life that is sustainable as a parent who is going to raise a child who then will become an adult who has a sustainable life for him or herself. All of those categories are necessary. And I think it's, you know, I can't imagine the relief that a young parent would feel, knowing that there's at least a connection to some solution for all those things, which must just be huge question marks when they find themselves in that situation. And goodness, you talk about anxiety. If anxiety doesn't come from question marks in how am I going to make these parts of my life work? So I think that's good. Everyone who's watching, go back and listen to all those different metrics that you guys use to evaluate what you've done. And that'll tell you how comprehensive the guidance you guys are providing to young parents is. It's just extraordinary. I can't imagine how fulfilling it is to do it, and how relieved the young parents must feel. Talk about how educational placement or connection works for the parents and for the kids. Are there specific things you guys can do to connect the kids to certain schools, or the parents to certain schools, or how does that work? Is that or do you have formal relationships with schools, or do you just call them up and say, hey, they're enrolled in this program, et cetera, et cetera? How does that work?
Like, it kind of depends on what the parent would like to do,
Okay.
As far as what their career goals are. And that's one of the questions that we ask pretty close to the beginning, just getting to know them. But the BCC, the Brunswick Community College, is very welcoming and working with us and helping the parents. They have a lot of wonderful programs. So that's usually who we would refer them to. But
for people who aren't necessarily interested in the GED, but want training, is there vocational training that you guys connect young parents to?
Yes, and the BCC also offers that. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, they have all programs. We are very fortunate to have them.
Okay, so they have all the stuff like auto mechanic and machine operators and things like this, things that.
There's actually a school that's part of the Brunswick County school system that offers that. It's called Coast, the Coast. It's
okay.
But that's part of it. It's like the STEM classes, but also some life skill classes as well, which is the reason why it's so important to stay in school, so you can get that experience.
Yeah. And as far as the mental health resources that you can connect people to, what services are you taking advantage of there?
Usually we'll contact Coastal Horizons. That's one of the local services.
Yeah, they have a great reputation.
Yes. Yes.
What's going on with volunteers? If I'm a volunteer, what's my first step?
Okay, so if you're interested in being a volunteer, you would go to our website. We have a volunteer tab, and then it will take you through the steps for the application and the background check. Those are the only two things you need to do. We have 120 volunteers. I just checked that number, thinking you
wow.
might, which is fantastic. And it sounds like that's a lot of people, but there's so many pieces to make this all work well. And we always use more help. At the store, people go on vacation, volunteers go away. So you need somebody to fill in those days, those shifts, so to speak. When our resource center is open, we need people to come help sort donations. Everything is so well organized. Our volunteers do a great job, but to keep things running smoothly, you need that help in those different places. We have a wonderful communications team. They do our Facebook page. They do our Instagram. They do our website. We just updated it. It just went live recently. We have a newsletter that goes out to all our volunteers quarterly. And we have there's a lot of wonderful things that our volunteers provide for us. Trying to think of some of the other teams besides the mentors themselves. We have an administration team that comes in and does like the behind the scenes, the copying. They do all kinds of different things each week. I usually have a list for them to come
Well,
Yeah.
and I think definitely on the website, there's an exhaustive list of the ways you can volunteer. And I think it's so important for people to recognize that, even though the mother mentors are the core of this, the relationship that they have with the parents, with the mothers, primarily is the core of all this. And they have this 3-year commitment at least once a month going out, but I'm sure it's more than that in most cases. And there's calls and texts and doing research, helping them with this or that project or task. But that they are set up to do what they do by all the other volunteers, whatever task you're doing. No matter, a lot of people they want to help, but they're not necessarily people persons. And they would rather, do something manual. You had a carpenter come in and build some shelves for your office recently. So anything that you could do that would support a normal small business that is growing would support what these mother mentors are doing. And if you don't have that much time, it doesn't matter. Anything, it sounds, anything would help. So there's whatever your skill is, it sounds like there's something you can do at Samara's Village. Do you have any, I know we talked about the summer pop-up, any other events coming up, or any messages or anything you want to get out there?
Well, I think the message I'd like to share here at the end would be to say our most valuable resource is our volunteers. So we are going to have a volunteer appreciation event for our volunteers this month, and
great.
with a band and a meal, and just to say thank you for the time that they give to us, because we couldn't do what we do without them, and we really do appreciate them.
That's wonderful. And when is that happening? Is that a volunteers only event, or is that a volunteers plus people who are interested event?
It's a volunteers event plus spouse or plus one.
Plus spouse. Okay. For people who aren't volunteers, would you suggest signing up for the newsletter?
Yes, we do have our people who get our newsletter that aren't volunteers. Most of our donors, whoever shares their email with us, they'll get our newsletter. And I'd highly recommend that, so they can see the impact we're having here in the county and what's happening. I think it's great to see what's going on within an organization.
It's so exciting. I never asked you actually how many young parents have come through your program so far.
Oh, it's probably over 300 at least now.
That's extraordinary.
It really is, considering we're not even 8 years old yet.
That's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
And are you looking to expand locations?
Yes, eventually. Yes, we're dipping our toes into it with this nonprofit fair that we're having. And I didn't mention that, but with the one that we're having in June, the pop-up shop, we've invited other nonprofits outside of our 8 partners to join us to just get the word out about what other nonprofits are doing. And I think it's so important. We haven't had a nonprofit fair probably for at least five or 6 years. Part of it was the pandemic. And I'm not sure who hosted them in the past, but as a volunteer at the beginning, I had gone to some. And I think it's so important that we just get the word out about what everybody's doing.
Certainly, for all the nonprofits out there, follow Samara's Village on Facebook, show up to the June pop-up, bring a tent, call up and say, hey, we want to have a tent out there, or just bring your resources, or just bring yourself. Just to reiterate the 2 needs you had been talking about, the sort of sounds like the holes in what you feel you're able to provide currently. The big holes are housing resources and transportation resources.
And actually daycare. For our parents specifically, those are the 3 that we most commonly are trying to help them with, because many of the parents earn basic wages, and then they can't afford the daycare, so
Right.
that's difficult too.
Now, is the daycare something that if you had the staff, you would be able to administer yourself, or would you be looking for a partner who, specializes in that?
I'd say at this point it would be a partner. Maybe
Okay.
down the road, that could be a possibility, but at this point in time, with us being still young, as a nonprofit, that's a big step.
Is this exclusive to Brunswick County residents, or if mothers from surrounding areas can make it, or is it open to them?
Well, right now, our volunteers come from Brunswick County. So in order to make it, I don't want to say convenient, but doable, basically.
Manageable.
Manageable is a better word. Yes. However, there are times when our mothers or fathers will move to the Wilmington area, New Hanover, or sometimes, into Columbus County. And depending on the relationships and, accessibility, we have mentors that will travel with, and go see those families. You get connected, and it's hard to just stop abruptly, depending on the health, of everybody. But we have done that. It was originally set up to be just Brunswick County, but I would love to see us get more established in the northern end of the county and then across the bridge. I think we're heading that way. And
well, you're doing what you can as you can.
Exactly.
And I think you're an open door, and I think that's just wonderful. And just to reiterate that point you just made, the videos on your Facebook page, if someone is watching this and thinking about becoming a mother mentor, there was one that was so touching where the woman said, this was a 3-year commitment, but this woman is still in my life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's so extraordinary how you're able to, the phrase from the Bible is to be all things to all people, right? So of course there are some situations where it's court mandated and someone goes through it and gets some benefits from it, but maybe is resistant to it just because of the nature of that setup. But you provide what you can for that person to the level of that person's desire to interact. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have this mechanisms for sort of almost creating new families. The one woman, I think it was the second or third video of the mother mentors, she was talking about this woman like she was an adopted daughter or something, and I think you guys are fighting the dissolution of the family by creating a new family. And it's just I think it's glorious what you're doing. And I thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show. I will give you the last word. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Oh my. I would say if you have a heart for working with a young person, we never have too many mentors. And there is a video that you would see as a mentor or as a volunteer called One Caring Adult. And having that one person in your life, no matter how much you're in that person's life, can really make a difference, whether it's a teacher or a coach or an adult or just somebody to listen to. And we found that it's just an invaluable experience for those that decide to be a mentor. But again, like I said earlier, every volunteer, no matter what part they play within the village, it does truly take a village to raise a child. That's what we're all about.
Wonderful. Debbie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
God bless.